Time now for The Clash. Millions of Brits could be forced to work for longer under new secret government plans to raise the retirement age to 68 by 2035, it has been revealed. The proposal could be announced as early as the March budget and would affect those born in the 1970s and later. The current retirement age of 66 will increase to 67 in 2028, and the next scheduled rise to 68 is due in 2046. However, ministers reportedly want to bring forward the change to 2035, affecting those who are 54 and under today. However, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and Chancellor Jeremy Hunt have both been warned by Tory backbenchers that they are playing with fire with the policy likely to alienate voters at the next general election. So what do you think? Should the government increase the retirement age to 68 to help pay for our ageing population? Dan at gbnews.uk if you want to weigh in. You can vote in our poll at GBNews on Twitter too. But to help you make up your mind, joining me, the TV firebrand and queen of clean, Kim Woodburn, former MEP and environmental activist Stanley Johnson, and the former Conservative Minister Edwina Currie. So, Stanley, you're very clear on this. You say absolutely Brits are just going to have to get used to working much longer.
Well, I think that's right. I think that's going to be inevitable. We have an aging population. We are, I think, 18.5% of our current population is over 65, and that's going to increase by several million by the year 2040. So I think it is inevitable the government is going to do what it is suggesting. It can't afford not to do it. Yes, we pay as we go with our contributions, but that's not covering the increasing eligible population. And as we're bringing forward this age where we can qualify, I think that has to be the way.
But Edwina, is that fair on people who have worked their life expecting to be able to retire?
Well, we've been through this row before, this argument before, because we pushed up the retirement age. But by retirement age, let's be clear, we're talking about the age at which you can claim your state pension. We pushed it up for women in really quite a fast rate, from 60 to 65 to get it equal to men, and then up again to 66. So, women have had already quite a hard time. I think what's happening, Dan, is the government's trying to solve two problems. One is we're actually short of working people, and the other is trying to repair the public finances. And I can think of two other age groups who ought to do their contribution before you start turning to the older people in society. First of all, people in their 50s who haven't gone back to work after COVID. There must be ways of nudging them to get back into jobs. And secondly, students. We have an enormous number of students in this country. When I first started work, and Stanley will remember this time, only 1 in 10 of over 18s went on to full-time education at university or college. Now it is 1 in 2. We've gone from 10% to 50%.
Yeah, well, I blame Tony Blair for that.
Totally useless degrees. We don't need more people being media graduates. We need more plumbers. I've had to wait 2 months for a plumber to come to my house. The more people we can get into work at 18, the better, I think. And that would help solve an awful lot of problems.
Yeah, I do agree with that, actually. But Kim Woodburn, Stanley Johnson says, look, Brits should have to work until they drop. You disagree?
I totally disagree. I'm going to tell you something, Mr. Johnson. 1.3 billion of our taxes go to illegal immigrants a year. And if the government would get their fingers out and do the correct job, there's enough money coming in. They don't need any more money for pensions up to 68. They're squandering money like mad. Your recent MP, who should be fired, 4.8 million, he's fiddled. Oh, you're a wonderful, wonderful example, aren't you? If we can afford to spend 1.3 billion a year on illegal immigrants, when most of them should be sent back, the needful ones keep. 50% are bums.
OK, let Stanley respond, Kim.
Yeah, Kim, I don't think you're focusing on the reality. The reality is that we, the older generation, have gained about 8 years, 9 years in life expectancy. Now, in the good old days, when people like Heathcote Amory was Chancellor of the Exchequer in the end of the 40s, it was brilliant. People smoked, They died at 60. He got money from the tax on cigarettes, and he didn't have to pay for old age care and the pension for a long time. That situation has changed. We ate 8 years. We were going to have eight more years. It is absolutely reasonable.
But what about, Stanley, what about folk like Kim? Kim obviously has developed a big celebrity career now, but for years and years and years, she was a cleaner. I mean, that is tough work, isn't it, Kim?
That's a very good point.
To do manual labour.
15 years of age.
No, you've got a good point.
15.
You've got a good point. There are some. I think you're right. I grew up on a farm, and I can tell you, the sheer physical labour involved, if you leave school at 13, 14, 15, whatever it was, and then you're doing docking and shearing and dipping and heaven knows what.
Yeah, but you're saying those people.
You're right. Those are important
issues. About 70.
Those are important issues, and I couldn't agree with you more. Maybe there's some work at the margin here, that there are certain careers which are so bodily exhausting that maybe you don't ask them to wait those extra years.
So, Kim, maybe there could be exceptions to the rule.
Maybe. I'm just tossing that out.
You can't expect a person in much older years to do farming work. The physical strain, you couldn't do it at 68. We change, I mean, it's utterly ridiculous. But Stanley, there's enough money in this country if we would do a proper job as MPs. Claw back all these people that aren't paying their taxes. Billions and billions and billions aren't paying their taxes. Look at showbiz people who've done people out of 2 million. I can name a name, but I won't.
Well, Kim, if you really want to enlarge the discussion, then for heaven's sake,
what age are you going to retire? Are you not retired?
I am. No, I'm expecting to work for many more years. I mean, for me, it's absolutely good fun.
Yeah, it's Stanley. I love that.
I mean, well, why not? Why not?
Are you retired now?
No, of course I'm not retired.
He's here.
Why on earth would I be retired? I've written 20.
The job you do is hardly stressful, dear, is it? You walk around in a smart suit.
Can I get a word in edgeways?
Yes, Edwina, come on. Edwina, who are you siding with, Edwina? Who are you feeling? Are you with Kim or are you with Stanley? You can be the deciding vote.
I love the idea of Kim actually standing for Parliament and being a better member of Parliament than the people she's criticising.
I think she'd be great.
A job. Nor will the money that is being spent currently on illegal immigrants be anything like enough to sustain millions and millions of older people. Stanley has got a point. We have many more millions of older people. But I would say that to some extent we've already dealt with that. If you look at the row that's going on in France at the moment, the retirement age there for the state pension is 60. And they're having no end of a job trying to raise it to something closer to us. So we've kind of gone further along that path. As for somebody who is in a tough job and perhaps can't work any longer, we do have benefits of a different kind that are available at any age where people cannot work. And those are really quite expensive and we should keep them. But I make my point again, there are other groups in society who ought to be pulling their weight much more.
Kim?
It is much easier to get a job at 20 than it is at 66. And I think we ought to be looking to them to do their bit far more than they're doing at the moment.
Earlier about the students. Why do they all have to go to university? 1 in 10 went when I was a kid, now many more. Why? They laze around, they muck about, they're on drugs and God knows what, and the government's keeping them in grants. We have enough money in this country if the government would spend it wisely and stop all this nonsense of giving these kids. It makes me sick. And another thing, there's many people, young people, are too bloody bone idle to work. And the government should stop giving them and their parents lots of money. And the parents sitting there, I'm poor. She's at the hairdresser's once a week, mummy with a fag in her gob. Her husband's at the pub 3 nights a week on the way home from work. That is not a poor family, not the poor I knew.
Let me toss in another point here, if I may. I really have great sympathy with the Chancellor of the Exchequer here. It's an impossible task he is faced with. And don't forget, at the same time, you and many like you are pushing for the triple lock. The triple lock, that is going to put another 10% on the value of a state pension. He has to do something. And what he's doing now seems to be reasonable and acceptable.
OK.
Not when young people are sitting at home under 25, not working,
Yeah.
and claiming.
Well, I have to say, I think Kim has made some great points.
Do something.
Yeah, there's a lot of government waste.
You can't penalise old people because the youngsters are going flaming idle. What's the matter with you?
No, there's a lot of government waste. And I have to say, Edwina, I love your idea. Imagine that. Kim Woodburn, MP. You wouldn't want to mess with her and you wouldn't miss her questions during PMQ.
Well, cocktails at dawn, dear. MPs don't work anyway.
Let's hope she writes. Let's hope she writes as good novels as Edwina does when she's an MP.
No, I'll tell you something. Edwina is a lovely woman. I met her a couple of times. She's a sweet, sweet woman. I don't agree with many things she said today, but it's her opinion. No, she's a lovely and did work. Many of them, quaff, lazy arseholes.
On that note,
to a flaming convulsion.
On that note, Kim Woodburn, TV legend, former MEP Stanley Johnson at the Tory Grand
If you don't like it, sue me. I don't care.
Then that's why we love you. Thank you, Kim, and Edwina Curry too. Who do you agree with? Should the government increase the retirement age to 68? From Graham. For most people, accumulating even a modest pension pot takes a long time. Too many in government have absolutely no idea. Nelia says, most people I know who could have retired at 60 but wish to carry on made it to 62. The head says yes, the body says no. You can think you can carry on as if you were 25. I wish. And from Andrew on Twitter, no one in their 30s or 40s now is realistically expecting to retire before 68, 69 anyway. And I'd agree with that. I think it's inevitable that it will end up being at least 70. Your verdict is now in there. It's overwhelming. Just 22% of you agree with Stanley that the retirement age should be increased. 78% of you with Kim Woodburn and saying it most definitely shouldn't.